So yeah, the Global Teachers Festival, and today we are going to talk about better informed assessment. So what do I mean by better informed? Well, when we talk about assessment, we're dealing with specific situations, right? We're talking about specific people. So the best way for us to provide opportunities is by giving information, by giving opportunities for people to understand the situation, the goals that they have. So it's all about the approach, right? And how do we do that? We have to have the right tools. We have to have the right strategies. So this is what we mean by better informed, is that you are studying not only, let's say, the executive part, the execution, you are also focusing on the strategies. So it's a combination of strategic planning and the executive portion of it, okay? So let me just check the next slide here. All right. Yeah, so it's all working collectively here with the slides. So there you have a saying, you have a quote that it's from Scott Thornbury. He says, that's from the A to Z edition of our methodology book. And he's saying that assessment refers to the different ways of collecting information about, the progress of a learner, the achievement. So one of the famous classic ways that we do that is by testing the learner, right? But the testing part is not really necessarily the best way for us to do it. So now we're really focusing on assessment, which is a more general term. It's preferred to testing because we don't want to use only formal or mechanical connotations, right? So everything that you can use as a way to gather information will help with the overall grade, right? So yeah, we can see tests as one way to gather general information. It's one type of assessment. So we would say it's a subset of a broader universe that is assessment. So they're usually one point in time, and it's summative, right? I gave people the body of work and I'm assessing the percentage of knowledge that they get from that body of work. So we want a broader plan. We want to collect more information. We want to have more opportunities. We want to really empower the stakeholders so they can make better decisions on their learning. They can also help us with the reflection process, so we need more. We need to include teacher observation. We need to include portfolio work. We need to include checklists. We need to include many things. So because of that, we are going to check the next slide here. I'm going to ask you, how do you collect information about your students' progress? So let's quickly check the chat here to see if I can, I'm trying to keep track of the whole thing here. Let's see. If someone gives me, okay, so quizzes, exactly, learning management systems, checklists, let's see, tests, portfolios, perfect. So that's exactly what I do. And that's very helpful because, again, we are all about collecting information. We're trying to use evidence and data to our advantage and to help our stakeholders, right? So summative assessment. So summative assessment and formative assessment. So we see these two words quite a lot, right? And basically today, I'm going to focus on formative, just so we can get things clear here. Like I said, summative is usually a body of work that's already there and it's been organized by whoever, and that is analyzed, in terms of percentage of knowledge. With formative, we're actually going to go it's going to be much broader, and we're going to use various informal, what people call like informal ways of analyzing information, because again, we're all about statistics, data, informally done, because everything is information, and that can be beneficial if it's properly thought out, neatly developed. All right, so let's check some bullet points here. So usually when we work with summative assessments, we have to wait till the end of the chapter or the end of the unit or even the year. So a lot of time has passed, and I really haven't gathered enough information, or at least I'm not really keeping track of students' progress throughout the whole thing. So it's better to go with formative assessment. So it's done throughout the whole thing, during the learning process, focused on learning outcomes, monitoring how students are learning, okay? So we want to improve how people learn, because learning is that, brain process situation where it's an amazing thing that we change how we process information, how we collect, how we retain ideas. And we have to rest, and we have to sleep, and we have to give it time, and we have to do it with spaced repetition. That's all fine and dandy, but can we improve how we do that? So that's exactly what assessment for learning does. So we focus on the whole process, the whole journey. Okay. So basically, I think we've covered the main aspects. I think we can check some of the examples now that I'm really pleading and stating my claim that assessment for learning is integral and pretty much a more complete and thorough way for us to evaluate our learners. So let's look at the first thing that we have here. Many of the examples that you've cited, everyone, are right there. So people said, quizzes or checklists. I'm actually going to add a couple more there. So we have interviews, we have observations, like lesson observations, graphic organizers, because a lot of people, they like to see information neatly placed, laid out on the screen or posters, right? I mean, so a graphic organizer will a lot of times be super helpful for the classroom setting. Questionnaires are very important. Class discussions, because people want to be heard. Journals, again, keeping track of progress, writing about your overall progress. What do you think? And also self-evaluation. So we're going to talk about all these things. Worksheets. Okay. So I think let's check the chat here. I'm just trying to do everything concomitantly. Let's see. Someone is asking about diagnostic assessment. Yeah, well, it depends on how you do it, but a diagnosis is actually a snapshot of what is happening up to that moment, and it's happening with the overall learning outcome in terms of, like, it's a broader picture of how the person is doing at that moment, instead of compared to the body of work that's already ready. So you're getting an overall picture. So it's a snapshot. So it can be done, and we highly recommend it. And it can be done formally or informally. But what we are stating here is that if we use the more info that we gather, even when it's informal, it's going to be better for our student, because again, the student, the learner, they are stakeholders. They have that they have the final outcome. They want to really be speakers of a language, right? So they have to have a say, they have to participate, they have to be active in the process. Okay. Yeah, so people are saying that things that we're not grading are obviously not summative, in a way that we're not quantitatively working with that piece of information, but that piece of information is giving me snapshots, is giving me statistics, and it has to be considered. Okay, so it's anything that's available evidence. All right, available evidence, because we have to work with info, we have to work with facts, we have to work with various ways, because people are different, right? Okie dokie. So I'm just going to quickly glance through the top 10 tips. Like I said, like I was telling Super earlier, we collected Greg, Lemmy, some of the academic consultants here at Macmillan, Poland, Macmillan, Mexico, various tips from our authors from various webinars. And we're going to share here, this curation of tips. So we have the tips right there, 7 tips. Let me just move my menu here so I can see the 7th tip. Yeah, so let students know what the objectives are, using examples and models, talking about descriptive feedback. I'm going to talk about every topic, okay? This is just a brief summary. So we're going to talk about self-evaluation, self-assessment. We're going to design lessons to focus on specific learning outcomes. We're going to do focused revision, and we're going to keep track of, so we're going to show students how to keep track and share their learning. So again, it's all about the active participation, reflection. So we're going to ask them to reflect. How was it? We're going to be always thinking about learning outcomes. And why is that? Because that is a learning-centered approach, okay? We define the learning outcomes, and we kind of get that risk of tests dictating what I'm going to do out the water, right? So we have, let's say, better strategies to work whenever we work with the whole piece of information. So that's the 10 tips right there. The first one, I think the first one we got from Malcolm and Steve Taylor-Knowles, and Malcolm Young and Steve Taylor-Knowles from various course books that we have here, Laser Optimize. They're great authors that we have, and they talked about, objectives. So it's really super important for students to understand what objectives are before they attempt to do any task, right? So, well, especially speaking and writing. So should you focus on the message when you're communicating right here? Should I focus on the content, on the message? Should I focus on fluency, on accuracy, right? So let's not really worry too much about mistakes, right? We're going to make mistakes along the way. I'm improvising here, I'm thinking, I have to think really fast. So not really focusing on being precise and accurate all the time. We have that dichotomy. But at the same time, if we give them small steps, then we're going to have better criteria to use to gauge how people are doing. So it's all about providing scaffolded opportunities. And I'm going to ask myself, okay, when I'm presenting the opportunities, am I giving them quantitative or qualitative information, right? Information that can be measured or information that can be just studied. So whenever I talk to the students, I have to address them in a language that they will understand, right? If I speak their mother tongue, then I can try and use that to help me out depending on the situation. Again, everything is an implied contract. Everything is a social agreement that we have, and we are mentors. We're facilitators of knowledge. We're trying to help our students to know more, to be better stakeholders, to really participate, to be active, to use things, to do things in a more functional way, right? So yeah, we have to let them know what the objectives are. We've got to do it with graded activities, okay? Controlled, semi-controlled, freer. So I gave you a few examples here of screenshots that we have. And these screenshots here are giving you all the learning outcomes. We are very honest to our stakeholders. We give them the learning outcomes right out the gate. And we also do everything graded. So this is very helpful. And this is very systematic in a way that helps the teacher. And we do that with kids, we do that with teens, and we do that with adults. As you can see here on this example with Language Hub, we have the objectives there, the learning outcomes. And we're going to slowly and surely work towards these objectives. So everyone is aware, everyone is okay with that social contract that we have. And I'm going to try and do the best, as best as I can, in order to help to provide the right opportunities for my students to profit from those moments. Okay. So yeah, so perfect. Tip number 1. Now, tip number 2, we actually got from Jill Carter. She was talking about better writing. How can we improve writing using examples and models? So whenever anyone has a model, they know at least what's already laid out. So the tasks become easier because they have a guide. So whenever we're talking about productive tasks, especially obviously speaking and writing, we got to direct students to sample answers. We got to really do step-by-step guides. And our course books all offer those good bits of information. So this is for writing. So with speaking, we have, we can all provide models ourselves. We can use audio, we can use role play, we can use, YouTube video examples. We can time things, we can do step-by-step, but we have to decrease teacher talking time, right? So we are always aware and conscious that we have to optimize moments for people to be actively working with the language. Okay, so yeah, again, these are just examples for you to see that course books are doing that. And these are various, like I said, writing examples. Here we have an example from Global Stage, which is a phenomenal book for primary students, where we give them various models with dialogue, with audio. Okay, so again, it's all about collecting information. So if you could leave the webinar with one, let's say, main idea to use in your lessons, I would say is better using the evidence that you have. So not really discarding any evidence. Every piece of information is valuable. Okay. Okay, now the third tip. So the third tip comes from Chia Chong. She ran a webinar called Assessing Students' Needs and Lacks. So what is she showing us here? Well, descriptive feedback. So we have to provide ways for people to work collaboratively, because again, we are not only teaching linguistic competencies, we're always working with an overall bulk array of skills, right? So there's a presentation evaluation, for example, where we're going to have peer evaluation. So how do they do that? I have to provide them models and guides, right? So it's always about that. It's always about supportive feedback. It's always about models, examples, and we do that with various books. In this case, we took the example from Breakthrough Plus, here from Max Science. So we use, even with the content books, the books that are from like K through 12, or content, academic content, right? So in this case, we have a checklist example there, and we are going to, like I said, slowly but surely give them opportunities. This is another example from Global Stage here, right? With a Venn diagram. So, you could use that with one peer to help other peer. This can be used for self-evaluation, but this is very visual, right? We have the intersection areas there with the subsets. So again, anything that's visually done is always beneficial for our students to remember, because it's kind of like images, they get etched in our brain, and super important. Here is a different way with stars, right? So this is an example from Share It, one of our primary books. And you have, an exercise that you can rate students' progress. The student themselves are going to rate their progress in terms of like stars. So again, we are using what we can, right? We have some rubrics here, for example, right? What needs improvement, what was okay, what is good, what is outstanding. So it's a matrix, right, with rows and columns. very easy to do, and very easy for people to access information. So again, tools. Remember I said providing tools and opportunities. This is a beautiful tool because here very quickly, sorry, I can pinpoint, I can see things and I can act accordingly. So that's why we're calling it a better informed procedure, because it is a situation where I can act. If I wait till the end of the year, then there's no time to act anymore, right? To the end of the book. It has to be right now. What's the snapshot? What's the current situation? What can be done to thwart, to swerve things into a different direction, to really make an impact, right? It's right here, right now. Okay. Number five. So design lessons to focus on one learning aspect at a time. I'm just conscious of time. I got to keep track of the time here. So yeah, learning aspects, learning outcomes. I mean, here, for example, with this grammar activity, what are we going to do? Should we focus on fluency, accuracy? Should we focus on new learning items, new lexical items? So that's very important, because if we do it one learning aspect at a time for someone who's really being exposed to a situation, a newer situation, which will be a challenge, this gives them time to process things and to have more opportunities and to be okay with making mistakes. Okay. So again, one more example here really quick about vocabulary review and grammar. So here, we are focusing on specific items. So here, lexical items, giving them time to properly choose the options, do some matching exercises, completing the sentences. So again, it's focused. So we're going to review specifically the adjectives. We're going to review specifically when we wrote a letter, what were the topics. So this helps people, and that's why books are laid out and thought out like that. It's got to be graded. The next tip would be to engage students in self-reflection. So self-reflection is always great, because it's like we rarely give time to ourselves, right? We rarely stop and think. So it's kind of like that philosophical idea of stop and think about what's happened. Give yourself some time, right? Give yourself some time. And then try to share what you thought about. Try to share, because collaboration is a key skill these days. I mean, we have critical thinking, right? I mean, try to read as much as you can from various sources. We have communication, we have collaboration, and we have creativity. So these 4 C's have to be contemplated. In this case, we can collaborate. So we can give people time to think, to self-reflect, especially because when you do that, you're like saying you are a stakeholder here. You can definitely take some time and think about your progress. Yeah, so that's great, because I was checking the chat here, and Amania Collins, she says that students have to be actively engaged. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, you're a stakeholder here. I'm your mentor, I'm your facilitator, and I would like that you could spend some time just self-reflecting about what happened, because if someone does that, they're doing what we call outside in thinking. So they're like, trying to picture yourself from the outside looking in, even though you're doing that self-evaluating. That's okay, because you're trying to see things from a different perspective and you're trying to look back. So in hindsight, what could I have done differently? Okay. So let's see if there's anybody, because I'm trying to really do the chat as we go along. Otherwise, it's just massively there, because I see like so many messages. But people are talking about learning items, learning outcomes. treating people individually, that's perfect because, and that was from Slavica, because obviously we have different needs, different learning situations, outcomes, and you are going to be the conductor. So you know the orchestra there, you know the guy who plays the cello is going to need different things if you compare to the guy who plays the oboe or the guy who plays the viola, the violin, and so on and so forth. But they all have to spend some time self-reflecting about the process, right? And we can use different strategies. We can use more, let's say, iconic strategies with kids, with the star rating system, and we can use more descriptive, qualitative ways with adults, for example, right? That they're going to use lexical items. So we call it like meta language, right? Fancy word. Providing moments for people to discuss ideas. So you can first discuss ideas with yourself, and then you can work with the 4 C's, collaboration, and discuss ideas with other peers. All right. Let's see the chat here. People talking about attempting, praising for attempting. Exactly. There's no problem whatsoever in trying and not getting there, because it's going to be, you are climbing the hill, right? You're going uphill, you're trying, and you're going to go higher. It's just that you need more opportunities. It's learning by doing. It's learning by doing, you know? Very good, everyone. I like that you're very active there, and I'm trying to keep track. All right. So let's see here. We're talking about reflection. And here, keeping track of time. Okay, we're good. So assessment should be aligned to clear learning outcomes. So like we were saying, what is the curriculum here? What are the skills that the curriculum wants? But the curriculum wants skills that the stakeholders are noticing that they benefit from those skills. They can contribute. They can give us more. They can talk about their own individual needs, and we can act accordingly. We can personalize, customize, direct, manage, right? So here we have, for example, language focus, vocabulary, word formation, pronunciation. So we give specific things, and we're going to give time and evaluate specific things formally and informally, right? Visually, with the participation of the stakeholders, okay? So here we have the learning outcomes for various opportunities within the linguistic skills, the linguistic competencies, the subset of fluency. Let's see another one here. With the review here, we have everything compartmentalized and easily for us to gauge, right? This is what's most important. It's for us to find ways to easily gauge things. So this is beautiful here. Look at this layout here with the colors, with the organization of information. We're talking about motivation. And I love talking about motivation, everyone, because motivation moves mountains, right? And it doesn't have to be only intrinsic and intrinsic motivation. It can be extrinsic motivation as well, but it's the fact that you're thinking about, you're projecting. So that's motivation is in a way related to your vision, to like projections that you're doing related to your future self. Okay. And in this case, I'm doing with the rating system from 1 to 5, right? I'm giving tips. I'm using icons. I'm using design to help me with colors, with information. So again, it's important that we use every tool that we have. And this comes from Skillful, but see how beautiful this is. How motivated are you? So we have, I know my reasons for studying. Yes. Okay. Give me some time. My reasons for studying. For example, let me give you an example. Like I speak French for reasons because I lived in Canada for a long time. So I had to learn French. Well, it's not that I had to learn, I wanted to learn because I wanted to be active in that community when I lived in Montreal. But with Spanish, it was a different opportunity for me. When I lived in the States, I had an opportunity for a job that if I spoke Spanish better than I did back then, it would be helpful. So I had intrinsic motivations in terms of French, and I had extrinsic motivations in terms of Spanish. But either way, I know my reasons. So can I write a journal of my reasons, right? Can I set targets? And I'm doing that because I love languages and I'm constantly trying to improve. So I say, well, in 30 days, if I have daily contact with this language, in 30 days, you know, how am I going to be? How many words am I going to be exposed to? So, you know, because you have to be aware of the journey. But then obviously I'm a stakeholder who's been in various positions. So it's different. But if I'm a learner and I'm completely new to the process, I need you, the mentor. I need you, the facilitator, to help me out, right? To really be there with all the tools and the opportunity. So, hey, how about a journal? How about a checklist? How do you like to work? Do you like to work with interactive exercises? Well, I have a great opportunity here with online practice for you. Do you like to work with grammar? Do you like to work with more like a lexical type of approach where you memorize words and sentences that you can use for various functions within your daily life? So this is key because this will motivate. And it could be, like I said, an intrinsic motivation, something that's really driving you forward because you really want, or something that society is giving you the opportunity, but then you're going to take advantage of that opportunity regardless. Okay. Let's check the chat. Oh, thank you. So many comments here just thanking us for the sessions. It's just great to be here. And yes, you can have access to the PDF of the slides. You have to register, and you're going to get the information, via email. Perfect. Exactly. I think Sumaira Mushtaq Ahmed, maybe. I try to pronounce names as accurately as I can, but obviously sometimes it's not possible. Natalia Targomska was lucky enough not to have been tempted. Yeah, so you are a mentor, you are a facilitator of knowledge, right? So that's what you're saying. It's your calling. It's your calling to help people, because we like to really get people together and talk about things that we're passionate about, right? And we're passionate about languages because languages really help us with all of the other aspects, all of the other academic disciplines. The power of languages is that you can really talk about anything: programming, robotics, engineering, mathematics, science, we're using language. So this is super powerful. And if you can do that in various languages, then the world is your oyster, right? So I think we're getting to the end. I think we have to get to the Q&A if I'm not mistaken. So I think I'm almost reaching the end here. Oh yeah. So I'm going to type, let's see if I can type in this game here in the chat box for y'all. Okay, here. Copy and paste. So this is a quick game for you to practice your assessment for learning. It's just hitting the moles with whenever you see an assessment for learning topic. Okay, any topic that is related to assessment for learning, you're going to hit the mole and you're going to get the points. All right, so just have fun. I pasted the link here. Let me just paste it again. It's just that it goes by super fast, right? I mean, it's kind of like having a, let's try it again here. 1 second. I can copy and paste. Let's see.
Yes, I've got it. I will go.
Oh, you've got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Super. So let me just stop sharing here. Oh, let me just give you my information. These are the sources that we had for today. Like I said, you know what, we can share that via email with y'all. So thank you so much. If you want to add me on Instagram, my name is just my last name, Tamulus. And it was a great pleasure to be here with you. Let's have, do you have time for the Q&A, Super?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So first question for you is because you just mentioned about skillful, so I think this can go together with that course. So teacher Samaria asked if there are any courses by Macmillan to do assessment for learning for university students, for young adults. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, ESP, English for specific, EAP, skillful would be great. Like you said, we have the second edition beautifully done, and you could, there are various ways for you to work with assessment for learning and all of the checklist options that we've given here.
Yes, I just sent a link for teachers to access the page of Skillful Second Edition. I think you can find something information there for you to assessment your learners in AAFL for university students. Yes, and the second question is about the percentage of assessment for learning and assessment of learning. So what should be the balance?
That's a great question. We don't really have an exact number because it depends on the stakeholders. It depends on the institution. It depends on parents and students. I mean, if they're minors or if, adults. So I would say for the future, I see assessment for learning as getting more and more percentage within the 100%. So I would say, like theoretically, we already see many institutions like with 70-80% assessment for learning, mostly the ones that work with the International Baccalaureate or with international curriculum guidelines. They are very much for that type of strategy. However, more formally in traditional conservative schools. And I would say, let's hope that at least 50-50, at least 50-50 right now.
Yes, and I think both, like, they work together better than so both formative and I agree with you. Yes,
I totally agree. Yes, synergy. Yeah.
That's right. And also we have got more questions coming. So one question from, wait a minute. Let me scroll down a little bit. Will we have access to the motivation page? Teacher Cruz asked. You mentioned about the motivation page.
Oh, yeah. So the motivation page, it was just a screenshot, but it is part of the presentation. I'm going to check, but I think we can send it's from Skillful, right? It's just it was an example that I got from Stella Cottrell. She has that section about skills, and this is a beautiful motivation graphic organizer there that I got from Skillful. But we can definitely share that via email with the PDF file for the presentation.
Yes, teachers, you are going to have access to the recording and also the slides by the email. So you can check them out later in maybe 2 to 3 days. Yeah. Also, if you're interested in the Skillful session, the course, I am also sending the link for the book, for the course. Yeah, you can go and check out and download some sample units from that course as well. Yes, and also teacher Slavaka also asked about assessing teenagers, because she mentioned a lot of teenagers work really hard, but they don't really get as well as they expect. But some teenagers are quite good and they're so cool, so they don't really care about the evaluation or the assessment. So she has a dilemma there of assessing these teenagers.
Yeah. In my case, I would say I do it idiosyncratically in terms of like I checked, I will gauge each and every student in a way that the component that is mandatory has to be done, but the component that is customizable, has to be done in a way that will work with that specific student. So for teens, that is more than anything, because teens are within, like the primary students, they're more complacent, and the adults, they know their stakeholders who know what they need. So the teenagers are in between. They're like, I want to rebel against society in a way. I want to have my say. Okay, let me hear you. So, and by doing so, using formative assessment with things that are very good for that student, then we have more chances of really optimizing that opportunity and using the learning outcomes to our advantage and to the student's advantage.
Yes, and I think assessment for learning can be a tool or a good way, yeah, to balance these like just different students' needs and giving maybe different like feedbacks for different students' progress, keeping track of everybody's progress to make it visible for them what they've done and what progresses they have made. Yes, yes, thank you very much, Alex, for your brilliant session.